Hey guys, tonight we drift back about 4,500 years to the soft edge of the Nile, where the world smells faintly of silt and wet reeds, and dawn arrives more like a sigh than an event. The sun rises slowly, turning the black soil to gold dust, and you lie half awake, listening to water lap at the riverbank. The air is still cool, though you know it won't stay that way for long. In a few hours, the heat will press down like a heavy blanket, but for now, everything feels suspended, peaceful, rhythmic, eternal.
You probably won't survive this. I mean, statistically speaking, living in ancient Egypt wasn't exactly a long-term plan. Between crocodiles, the occasional flood gone rogue, and whatever mysterious infections lurked in that beautiful brown water, you'd be lucky to see 40. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together.
The first thing you feel is the hush before sound. The Nile holds its breath, waiting. Then, slowly, the chorus begins. Ibises calling in short, nasal bursts, frogs croaking from the reeds, and someone, somewhere, striking flint to coax a morning fire. You stretch, your body sticky from sleep and river mist, and sit up on a mat woven from papyrus stalks. A breeze moves through your hair, warm already, scented faintly with baking mud and palm ash. You live on the western bank, in a small village that clings to the edge of the fertile floodplain. The houses are modest, mudbrick cubes smoothed with straw and Nile clay, their walls etched with finger streaks that have long since dried. Roofs are flat, used for drying fish or sleeping under the stars when nights get too hot. Your home smells of grain dust and sweet oil, the leftovers of last night's stew clinging faintly to the air. You step outside and squint at the river. The surface glows pink and bronze, broken by the long necks of geese gliding toward the marshes. The water looks endless, though you know it isn't. It's the lifeline of everything: food, faith, trade, and gossip. People measure their whole existence by how the Nile behaves. Too generous, and the fields drown. Too stingy, and famine gnaws at every door. Historians still argue whether the ancient Egyptians truly understood the science of the flood, the seasonal rhythm caused by distant rains in Ethiopia, or whether they saw it as pure divine mood swing. You lean on your knees, watching the current swirl. Somewhere downstream, you imagine a fisherman already hauling in his morning catch, tilapia glinting like silver coins, catfish thrashing against woven nets. The man probably hums as he works, a song passed down from his father, the melody as old as the river itself. The light climbs higher, turning the reeds to green fire. The sounds of the village bloom around you: a baby's cry, the dull thud of a millstone grinding barley, the rhythmic beat of someone pounding linen against a rock. The people here wake with the Nile, their routines as dependable as sunrise. You feel your bare feet sink slightly into the damp soil, soft and cool. The ground is called Kemet, the Black Land, named for its fertile silt. Beyond it lies Deshret, the Red Land, where sand and death begin. But right here, in the in-between, life hums quietly and endlessly. You wander toward the water's edge, careful not to step on a scorpion. They like the warmth of early light, those tiny, smug little guardians of sandals. You reach a low wooden pier, a simple structure, no nails, just lashed reeds and rough boards. Two boys are already there, skipping smooth stones and arguing about which god controls the fish. One insists it's Khnum, the ram-headed god who shaped life from clay. The other swears it's Hathor, because she likes beautiful things, and fish are shiny. You don't argue. It's too early for theology debates. The Nile smells sweet this morning, like wet grass and clay pots drying in the sun. A few lotus blossoms drift near the bank, their petals half closed, their reflections trembling in the ripples. You bend down to touch one, your fingertips grazing the cool water. Somewhere nearby, a heron lifts its wings and takes flight, scattering droplets like tiny glass beads. A thought crosses your mind, one you'll forget by noon. Every dawn here feels the same, but none truly is. The river changes slightly each day, its edges shifting, its current whispering in a different tone. People think of it as eternal, but it's alive, breathing, adjusting, sometimes grumbling. There's a legend that the Nile hums at night, that if you listen closely, you can hear it speaking to the moon. Historians still argue whether that hum is just frogs or wind across reeds, but either way, it's oddly comforting. Behind you, the village wakes fully. Someone calls your name, probably your mother, telling you to fetch water before breakfast. You grab a clay jar, its surface rough and cool, and dip it carefully into the river. The water swirls, heavy and brownish, but clear enough when left to settle. The jar feels weighty as you lift it to your hip, the cool seeping through your linen wrap. You start back toward the huts, pausing to watch a crocodile sunning itself on a far bank. It doesn't move, and you pretend not to notice. Eye contact feels like a bad idea. Back home, smoke curls from small clay stoves. Someone's roasting onions. Someone else is laughing at a joke you missed. You set down the water jar and stretch your back. The day has properly begun. Soon, you'll join the rest in grinding grain or patching nets, but for a moment, you just stand there, soaking in the soundscape, the faint slap of waves, the buzzing of flies, the quiet conversation of neighbors greeting each other with lazy nods. One of them jokes about the flood coming early this year. Another shrugs, chewing a reed stem. Nobody's really sure. The priests at the temple will announce it eventually, reading the stars and muttering to the gods. But honestly, everyone just looks at the sky, smells the air, and listens to the frogs. When they start singing louder than usual, it's usually a good sign. The sun climbs higher, flattening the shadows. You look east, toward where the desert begins, a pale, endless shimmer. You can almost hear the difference between there and here. Silence so pure it hums. The Nile's edge, by contrast, is full of soft noise, living, breathing, whispering. You notice a few boats sliding past, their sails like faded linen triangles. Some carry grain, others people heading to nearby towns. You raise a hand, and a man waves back lazily. His boat's hull creaks as it glides downstream. You imagine where he's going. Maybe to deliver jars of beer to a construction site upriver, maybe to visit a cousin, or maybe he's just drifting because the wind feels good today. Life here isn't fast. It's cyclical, like the water's movement. People wake, work, eat, talk, sleep, and then do it again. Yet somehow you never tire of it. The sameness feels safe. Predictability is its own comfort, especially in a world where the gods might flood your home or send a sandstorm just because they're bored. You sit by the doorway, resting your elbows on your knees, and watch dust motes drift in the sunlight. Somewhere, a donkey brays like it's auditioning for a tragedy. You smile. Another day has begun along the Nile, and you are part of it. Small, content, alive.
The village wakes slowly, as if the entire community shares one long yawn. You hear it before you see it, the creak of door frames, the squeak of sandals on packed earth, the muffled chatter that builds like a warm breeze through the lanes. You pick up a woven basket and step outside again, greeted by the golden spill of sunlight crawling down the mud brick walls. Your neighbors are already moving. One woman bends over a stone grinder, turning barley into flour with slow, practiced motions. Each circle of her hands releases a puff of powder that catches the light, glittering for a moment before it vanishes into the air. You hear her humming under her breath, a tune older than the village itself, maybe. Music here isn't something you listen to, it's something that happens in the background, the pulse of work made audible. You pass by a pair of children carrying small jugs to the river, trying to look responsible and failing miserably. One slips, spilling half the water, and the other bursts out laughing so hard he nearly drops his own jar. Their mother scolds them gently from a doorway, shaking her head but smiling all the same. Childhood, you think, looks exactly the same in any century. A breeze rustles the reeds behind the huts. Somewhere, a rooster announces its authority, as if the sun rose only because it said so. You adjust your basket and make your way toward the communal grinding area near the edge of the village. The sound there is hypnotic. A dozen grindstones rolling in uneven rhythm, the heartbeat of breakfast. The air smells like flour, sweat, and faint traces of onion. You kneel beside an older woman who greets you with a toothless grin. Her name is Merit, which means beloved, though her personality leans more toward unapologetically blunt. She slides over a second stone and nods for you to take a turn. "Make it fine," she mutters. "The men say they don't like sand in their bread, but what do they know? Their teeth fall out anyway." You laugh softly, working the grain between the stones. The rhythmic motion sends vibrations up your arms, the rough texture of the lower stone scraping lightly at your palms. After a while, you lose yourself in the motion. The smell of crushed grain mingles with the river breeze, and you can almost forget time exists. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians preferred their bread coarse or smooth. The surviving loaves found in tombs are often rock hard, peppered with bits of grit that must have given dentists, if there had been any, plenty of work. But to you, the taste of fresh bread, baked over clay coals and dusted with coriander, is comfort itself. As you grind, Merritt tells you the village gossip. Whose goat wandered into the barley patch, which fisherman claimed the gods blessed his catch, though everyone suspects he just used extra bait, and who's been seen sneaking down to the river at night to whisper prayers into the current. You listen, nodding occasionally, offering the appropriate, "Oh really?" or "That's shocking," even when it isn't. The air warms steadily. The sun climbs high enough to wash the roofs in white light. Someone shouts for water. Another calls for help carrying reeds. You finish your share of grain and dust off your hands. The coarse flour sticks faintly to your skin, leaving your fingers pale. Next on your quiet agenda, you pick up a small jar, heading to the well that stands in the village center. It's little more than a pit lined with baked clay, but it holds the Nile's filtered gift, cool and slightly sweet. Two young men haul buckets, while a third complains dramatically about his aching back. You take a turn with the rope, lowering the jar slowly, feeling the tug of gravity, then the satisfying splash. When you draw it up again, water gleams at the rim, trembling like a captured piece of sky. As you carry it home, you pause by a small tamarisk tree. Its leaves are thin, feathery, and faintly sticky with sap. Beneath it sits an elderly man weaving a mat. His hands are knotted and sure, his movements slow but precise. "Morning, uncle," you say softly. He doesn't answer right away, just nods toward the horizon where the river glitters. "The flood will be good this year," he murmurs finally. "The ibis came early." You glance at him, unsure if he means it as prophecy or small talk. People here watch the animals for signs. The behavior of birds, the patterns of insects, even the mood of cats. It's not superstition so much as observation wrapped in poetry. The Nile teaches patience, and patience teaches symbolism. You walk on, passing a cluster of reed baskets drying in the sun. A woman waves at you, showing off a small clay amulet shaped like an ankh. "For luck," she says, "found it near the bank." You take a closer look. Its carving is rough, maybe made by a child, but the symbol is clear: life, eternal and looping. You smile and wish her good fortune. The village has its rhythm. Everyone seems to know what to do and when to do it, though no one ever says it aloud. The farmers head to the fields when the shadows shorten. The potters fire their kilns in the mid-morning heat, and the children drift between chores and mischief. A man passes by balancing 2 jars on a yoke across his shoulders, humming as he walks. Another leads a sleepy donkey by the rope, its ears flicking at invisible flies. You stop briefly to watch a woman mixing crushed ochre with water to repaint her doorway. The color glows like sunlight trapped in clay. Keeps the scorpions away, she claims. Historians still argue whether color pigments on walls were meant for magic, aesthetics, or just covering up old dirt. But here, it feels like all 3. Near the far end of the lane, someone tends to a small patch of herbs, coriander, mint, and a few sprigs of what might be chamomile. The scent catches in the air, cool and crisp against the rising warmth. The woman tending them looks up and smiles. For stomachs, she explains, and for dreams. You thank her and move on, stepping lightly through the dust. By now, the hum of the village has settled into full motion. Somewhere, a clay oven crackles to life. The smell of baking bread unfurls through the streets, thick and comforting. You glance toward the rooftops, flat surfaces dotted with jars, fish drying on lines, and a lazy cat who clearly thinks it owns the entire horizon. A pair of young men pass by carrying baskets of laundry down to the river. One of them waves at you and shouts, "You comin'?" You shake your head. You've got enough chores for one morning. Still, you follow with your eyes as they disappear behind the date palms. Their laughter lingers even after the trees swallow them. You pause in the shade of a hut, the clay cool against your back. The Nile glints through the gaps between houses, a ribbon of light calling softly in the distance. For a moment, you just breathe, listening. The buzz of insects, the soft murmur of women talking over bread, the rhythmic slap of wet cloth at the riverbank. All of it weaves together into something almost melodic. There's a saying here, passed down so long no one remembers who first said it. The Nile sings, and we keep time. You smile faintly, because it's true. Every task, every breath, every lazy argument about whose bread is softer, everything is part of that same slow, looping song. You head home as the sun creeps higher. Your basket now holds ground flour, herbs, and a faint dusting of tamarisk leaves. The village looks alive, tiny and eternal at once. As you walk, a neighbor calls out, "Remember to save a crust for the spirits." You laugh and wave it off, but you'll probably do it anyway. Just a little piece of bread left near the doorway before nightfall. Not because you're superstitious, of course, but, well, it can't hurt. Back in your hut, you set down the basket and wipe the sweat from your brow. The air tastes faintly metallic, warmed by sun-baked earth. Somewhere outside, the grinding stones fall quiet one by one, replaced by the chirping of sparrows nesting under the eaves. Morning has fully arrived, and the day stretches ahead, long and predictable, exactly how you like it. You sit for a moment, resting your hands on your knees, feeling the cool shadow slip slowly toward the far wall. The Nile waits just beyond, breathing in rhythm with you.
The sun has climbed high enough to turn everything white. The air hums softly, the way it does when heat begins to shimmer off stone. You sling a hoe over your shoulder and head toward the fields with the others. The path winds through tall reeds, the ground firm but dappled with drying puddles where the floodwaters have recently retreated. The smell is deep and earthy, mud mixed with grass and something faintly sweet, like wet sugar cane. The Nile's gift lies in that smell. Every year, it swells and spills, laying down a blanket of dark silt so fertile that even the laziest farmer could coax life from it. And yet, it's never simple. The river is generous, yes, but unpredictable. A living creature that loves you one season and ruins you the next. You think of the old saying Merritt likes to repeat. The Nile feeds with one hand and slaps with the other. She's not wrong. You walk alongside a group of men and women, tools balanced on shoulders, chatter drifting like smoke. Someone jokes that the flood came too low last year because the priests forgot to sing loud enough. Another insists that the river listens better if you leave a little beer by its edge. You don't correct them. Honestly, both theories seem equally plausible. Historians still argue whether the ancient people of the Nile saw the annual inundation as purely divine or partly scientific, whether those careful irrigation systems were acts of devotion or just good engineering. You reach the edge of the fields, and the view stretches open, an endless patchwork of green and gold. Rows of barley wave lazily in the breeze. Farther off, you see men knee-deep in water, adjusting narrow dikes to control the flow between plots. Their movements are slow and deliberate, as if the whole scene were a living clock, each person a moving gear. You roll up your linen wrap and step into the shallow mud. It oozes between your toes, cool and slippery, and for a moment you almost slip, catching yourself with an awkward laugh. A farmer nearby grins, his teeth white against sun-dark skin. She doesn't like strangers, he says, patting the mud as though it were an animal. You smile and begin helping, pushing water through the narrow trench that feeds the next section of crops. The current shimmers, brown at first, then clearing as silt settles. You use a small wooden spade to guide it, feeling resistance, soft but steady. The sound of trickling water fills your ears. There's something oddly calming about it, the soft slosh and splash, the rhythm of patient work. A flock of white egrets lands nearby, picking through the furrows for insects. Their reflections shimmer in the thin film of water that covers the ground. Somewhere farther away, a man calls to his oxen, the animals pulling a simple plow, just wood, rope, and willpower. The plow's tip cuts the wet soil cleanly, releasing little bubbles that pop like whispers. You pause to watch the movement, the way man and beast seem almost fused in rhythm. No shouting, no rush, just motion, repetition, peace. Farming here isn't a sprint, it's a long, patient conversation with the earth. A younger farmer joins you, balancing a gourd of water. He takes a drink, then hands it over. You sip, it's warm but refreshing. They say, he begins, if you sing to the water, the crops grow better. You raise an eyebrow. You believe that? He shrugs. Can't hurt. Then he starts humming, low, tuneless, steady. The sound weaves between the splashes of his feet. Maybe he's right. The crops look perfectly happy to hear it. There's a softness to the morning, even with the sun climbing higher. Every sound feels muffled by distance. The oxen snort, the creak of wooden tools, the splash of water against ankles. Occasionally, someone laughs, and the noise drifts lazily over the fields before fading back into silence. You pause to stretch your back. The air wavers above the wet ground, blurring the horizon. A dragonfly hovers for a moment, its wings glinting like glass. You can feel sweat trickling down your neck, tickling as it goes. You wipe it with the back of your hand, leaving a streak of brown mud across your skin. Nearby, two men are talking about the water level. One insists it's slightly lower than last year. The other swears it's the same. I marked the flood on my doorway, the first man says. The water reached just below the Eye of Horus. The other shakes his head. That's because your house sank, fool. You chuckle quietly, pretending to focus on your work. As the morning wears on, you notice the subtle choreography of it all, the shifting of people, tools, and animals in perfect unison. A woman scatters seed from a basket, her hand moving like a metronome. A boy follows, using a stick to brush soil over the top. No one seems to need direction. They've done this since childhood. Each gesture is inherited, passed down like a lullaby. You remember something your father used to say, "The Nile gives time its shape." You didn't understand it then, but you do now. Everything, births, deaths, prayers, debts, is measured by the river's moods. There's no calendar that matters more than the waterline.
At midday, you take a break beneath a small cluster of palms. Someone passes around bread and onions, the universal meal of the working day. The bread is coarse, with that familiar crunch of stray grit, but hunger doesn't complain. You eat slowly, savoring the bite of the onion, the sweetness of the bread's crust. A man named Hori sits beside you, fanning himself with a palm frond. He's older, with arms like rope and a face carved by sun and laughter. "You know," he says, "they say if you dig deep enough, you can reach the underworld from these fields." You blink at him. Is that supposed to be comforting? He chuckles. Not really, but it reminds you to dig carefully. You both laugh quietly. The humor's dry, like the air. Historians still argue whether Egyptians truly saw life and death as separate things or as two sides of the same flood cycle, ebb and flow, life and afterlife intertwined. Sitting here, mud on your feet and bread in your hands, it's hard to tell the difference. Both feel ordinary. Both feel inevitable. A few minutes later, you stand again, brushing crumbs from your lap. The sun has started its slow descent, softening its glare. The water in the channels gleams, catching the light like melted bronze. You bend once more to adjust a levee, and for a moment, you just stare at the reflection. The sky and the water, the palm fronds trembling above it, your own face wavy and strange. You imagine the Nile as a long mirror running through the world, reflecting everything, every voice, every footstep, every grain of sand. Somewhere far upstream, someone else might be looking into that same reflection right now. A farmer like you, maybe, or a priest, or a child, or even a crocodile with existential thoughts. Who knows? A soft breeze moves through the stalks. You inhale deeply. The smell of the fields is heavy and alive, full of promise and decay in equal measure. The river hums faintly in the distance, the low, steady sound that anchors your whole existence. You think of tomorrow, and the day after, and the hundreds of tomorrows that will look exactly the same. It's not boredom, it's comfort. Predictability means survival. The Nile might change, but you know your place within its rhythm. You rinse your hands in a shallow pool, watching the mud swirl away. The water cools your skin instantly. It's strange how something so simple, mud, water, sunlight, can feel like the entire universe. By the time you gather your tools and head back toward the village, the shadows have grown long. The sound of frogs rises faintly, a prelude to evening. Behind you, the fields glisten under the waning sun. Quiet, still, patient. They'll wait through the night for you to return tomorrow. You glance once more at the river. It doesn't look back, of course, but you feel its gaze anyway. Ancient, indulgent, slightly amused. You smile to yourself. "All right," you whisper to the water. "I'll see you in the morning."
By the time you return from the fields, the sun has softened to a kinder shade of gold. The air hums with life, flies buzzing lazily, goats bleating near the village edge, the faint rustle of palm leaves moving like whispers. You set down your tools and brush a thin crust of dried mud from your legs. The Nile's scent clings to you, rich and loamy, but you don't mind. It's the smell of work, of the river's quiet approval. You decide to walk toward the market before the afternoon heat settles too heavily on your shoulders. The path curves through clusters of houses, each one familiar. The same uneven walls, the same baskets propped against doorways, the same sleepy cats pretending not to listen. Somewhere a baby wails. Somewhere else someone laughs too loudly, and you think, yes, this is what home sounds like. The market is really just an open space between a few date palms and a mud brick wall that's been there longer than anyone remembers. There are no stalls or tables, just reed mats laid on the ground, each one a world of its own. You step into the bustle, though bustle might be too strong a word. It's more of a slow, murmuring current of voices. The first mat displays baskets of onions and leeks, their earthy scent cutting through the air. Beside them, a woman sells pottery, cups, small jars, one impressive amphora painted with a pattern that looks suspiciously like a chicken pretending to be sacred. You crouch to look closer. She catches your eye and grins. 3 copper pieces, she says. 2 if you promise not to tell anyone it leaks. You laugh, shaking your head. I'll tell everyone, you whisper. She laughs harder, and you both know neither of you will remember this conversation tomorrow. A little farther along, the fishmongers have set up their baskets. The air smells of salt and riverweed, sharp and clean. Tilapia glint in the sunlight, their scales catching every flash of light like coins. One man fans the flies away lazily, calling out half-heartedly to passing buyers. "Fresh from the river, only swam once." He repeats the joke for the 5th time today, and everyone still chuckles politely. Some jokes, like the Nile, never stop flowing. You pause to listen to the quiet barter between 2 older men. They speak softly, but with the rhythm of an old argument, gesturing with hands, weighing barley against dried fish, muttering about fairness. No one ever raises their voice here. Trade is more like conversation than competition. You wonder if that's just the pace of things in this world. Nothing forced, nothing rushed. A little boy runs past, holding a string of lotus flowers. He shouts something about offering them at the temple later, but for now, he's just proud of how they look swinging in the air, petals brushing his knees. You call out, "Careful, you'll lose them." He turns, grins with 2 missing teeth, and keeps running. So much for caution. At another mat, you find a man selling woven linens. The fabric shimmers faintly in the light, soft but strong under your fingertips. "This one," he says, lifting a piece dyed faintly blue, "was made by my sister. She says the color came from the tears of the sky." You tilt your head. The sky must cry a lot then. He smiles. Only when the priests get poetic. Historians still argue whether the dyes used in Egypt were imported from far lands or created by accident, one trader's spilled concoction that became fashion. Either way, color here is luxury. Most people wear undyed linen, plain and honest. But a hint of blue like this feels almost extravagant, like owning a piece of the evening sky. You imagine how it would feel to sleep wrapped in that softness, the fabric whispering against your skin. Maybe one day. You move on. The market air is thick now, warmed by both sun and humanity. The murmur of voices overlaps, trading, teasing, greeting. Somewhere a man plucks a small harp, its notes faint but beautiful, floating between the conversations like a friendly ghost. It's not performance exactly, more like habit, a way to keep hands busy and spirits awake. The melody feels circular, looping on itself, the musical version of the Nile's flow. You stop to buy a few small items, a lump of salt, a bit of honey sealed in a waxed pot, a strip of dried fish for later. You pay with barley, the unofficial currency of the common folk. Coins exist, but they're for scribes and temples, not villages like this one. Here, trade feels personal, more handshake than transaction. A potter you know, Dudu, waves you over to his mat. His hands are gray with clay, his forehead glistening with sweat. "Look," he says, lifting a new bowl, "I finally made one that doesn't wobble." You pick it up, it wobbles immediately. You look at him with mock seriousness. A revolutionary design. He laughs so hard he nearly drops a jug. "The gods will envy my craftsmanship," he says. "I'll sell this one to the pharaoh himself." "You'll need to fix the bottom first." "Ah," he sighs. "So you are a critic." You set the bowl down gently, still smiling. That's the thing about these markets. They're as much about laughter as trade. A place where time slows even further, where no one minds haggling for 10 minutes over a single onion because conversation is the real currency. Somewhere nearby, a woman claps her hands rhythmically to scare off a group of goats eyeing her produce. They scatter, bleating indignantly, and she mutters something about goats being worse than tax collectors. You don't doubt it. As you wander through the crowd, you notice small details that feel almost invisible until you focus on them. The way people brush sand from fruit before selling it, the careful stacking of jars to keep them cool, the constant hum of easy familiarity. Everyone here knows everyone else's business, and yet no one seems to mind. Privacy is a luxury no one has ever thought to invent. You pass a table of trinkets, shells, beads, small carved amulets. One catches your eye, a tiny clay frog. The vendor grins when he sees you looking. "For good luck," he says. "The frog calls the flood." You roll it between your fingers, its surface warm from the sun. You know you don't need it, but something about its simplicity appeals to you. You hand him a handful of barley. He nods solemnly, as if this is a deal of cosmic importance. You tuck the frog into your basket and continue walking. The crowd begins to thin as the sun grows harsher. People retreat to shade, conversation softening into a lull. A faint breeze drifts in from the river, carrying the scent of lotus and wet clay. You pause under a palm and take a long breath. There's something eternal about this rhythm: morning work, midday market, evening rest. The same gestures, the same voices, repeated across generations. If someone from 1,000 years in the future stood here, you think, they might not notice the difference right away. The clothes, the tools, the jokes, they'd all sound familiar. The world changes, but the small habits of living rarely do. As you turn to leave, the potter Dedu calls after you. "Don't forget, the next market day, I'll have a bowl that doesn't wobble." "You've been saying that since the last flood," you call back. He grins, unfazed, "and one day I'll be right." You laugh as you head home, your basket full of small treasures: bread, salt, honey, a frog, and the faint scent of the marketplace clinging to your hair. The sun hangs heavy above, but the air feels lighter somehow, as if the day itself is smiling. You pass under the tamarisk tree again, its branches trembling in the wind. The river gleams through the gaps ahead, calm and steady, as though amused by your errands. You think about how the Nile carries everything: fish, boats, gossip, dreams, and somehow never grows tired. You feel a kinship in that. The sound of a donkey braying snaps you from your thoughts. Somewhere a pot clatters, somewhere else a child giggles. Life continues, soft and cyclical. You take another deep breath, adjusting the basket on your hip, and head home toward the scent of baking bread and the promise of shade.
The sun lowers its voice as you make your way back to the riverbank. The light shifts to honey tones, pooling in the reeds and shimmering across the water. You can smell clay, warm, damp, and familiar. Ahead, a row of small, rounded huts gleam softly, their walls made from the same mud that squishes between your toes as you walk. This is home. Not just yours, but everyone's. Half-built, half-baked, yet somehow everlasting. You push aside the woven reed curtain that serves as your door and step into the cool shade of your mudbrick house. The air inside is quiet, smelling faintly of straw, oil, and baked earth. It's a relief from the blinding day, even if it's not much cooler. A few flies buzz lazily near the ceiling, and a gecko flicks its tongue along a crack in the wall like it owns the place, which, to be fair, it might. Your home is simple: a single main room, a low roof of palm logs and mud plastered over with care and prayer. Along one wall sits a storage jar taller than your knee, filled with barley and hope. Against another, a sleeping mat woven from reeds, soft from years of use. The floor is smooth clay, cool underfoot, swept clean with a palm brush each morning.
You set your basket down, careful not to spill the honey jar, and glance around. The frog amulet you bought earlier rests in your palm. You find it a small home. On a shelf beside a few chipped bowls, a worn oil lamp, and a small carved statue of Taweret, the hippopotamus goddess who guards mothers and children. She's a little dusty, but still fierce. "Watch over the frog," you whisper, as if they're both in on some divine joke. Outside, voices echo faintly, neighbors calling to one another, pots clinking, someone laughing too loud again. You can almost picture them through the wall. One family baking flatbread, another patching a roof, children arguing about whose turn it is to fetch water. The rhythm of village life never really stops, it just changes tempo throughout the day. You step back outside, squinting into the sunlight. Across the narrow lane, your neighbor Neferet is kneeling beside her oven, coaxing a small fire with a bundle of straw. The smell of baking bread drifts toward you, thick and sweet. "You're late today," she says without looking up. "Market day," you answer. "I had to buy a frog." She finally glances up, frowning. "A frog?" "For luck," you explain, holding it up proudly. She stares for a moment, then snorts. "You don't need luck, you need sense." You grin. "Sense doesn't sell at the market." She shakes her head, amused, and slides another round of dough into the clay oven. The pot-bellied shape of it radiates heat, the kind that makes the air shimmer. You watch the bread puff and brown in the glow, its scent so comforting it feels like home itself. Historians still argue whether these dome-shaped ovens, called taboons, came from local invention or from contact with neighboring cultures like the Canaanites. Either way, they've become part of Egypt's heartbeat. Every home, every courtyard, every family seems to have one. And every oven has its own personality. Some too hot, some too slow, some that burn bread only when you're in a hurry. "Want a piece?" Neferet asks, breaking off a small loaf and tossing it towards you. You catch it, barely. The crust is crisped, the inside soft and fragrant. You bite into it and instantly regret every time you've skipped breakfast. "Perfect as always," you say with a mouthful. She smirks. "Tell that to my husband. He says it's too chewy." "Then give him papyrus to eat next time," you reply. "He won't know the difference." You both laugh, the easy, tired kind of laughter that fills the late afternoon air. You glance upward. The roof lines of the village form uneven silhouettes against the setting sun. Some homes have extra rooms stacked on top. Others have stairs leading to nowhere, unfinished dreams, or maybe just architectural experiments. People often sleep on those roofs when the nights grow too warm. You can already see a few mats laid out, waiting for darkness. You climb your own short ladder to the roof. The clay surface is rough but cool now, the heat of the day slowly leaking away into the sky. From up here, the view is endless. The glimmering Nile, the fields stretching out like a quilt, the palm trees swaying, the smoke curling gently from ovens. You can see the temple silhouette too, standing tall and dignified, a reminder that the gods are always watching, even if you sometimes wish they'd mind their own business. You sit down, tearing off another bite of bread, watching as a flock of ibis glide low across the water. Their long beaks catch the light like bronze. The air smells faintly of lotus and wood smoke. Somewhere in the distance, someone starts humming, a tune you can't name but somehow know by heart. As the day slides toward evening, your family starts to gather inside. You hear the soft chatter from below, your sister grinding grain, your mother arranging a lamp, your father muttering to himself about the tools he forgot by the field. The house fills with sound and warmth again. You climb back down and help set out the evening meal. Nothing elaborate, some lentils, onions, bread, and a small bowl of honey. A feast for a tired day. You sit cross-legged on the floor, dipping the bread into the lentils, feeling the simple pleasure of a meal made with care. Your father tells a story between bites, One you've heard since you were small, about a crocodile that tried to steal a fisherman's boat but ended up tangled in his own tail. "The gods have a sense of humor," he says, chuckling. "We're just slow to get the joke." Your mother rolls her eyes but smiles anyway. Eat before the gods change their minds. A light joke passes between you all about the frog amulet and how it's already bringing blessings. After all, the bread didn't burn and the lentils didn't boil over. Your sister insists it's coincidence. "Luck doesn't come from frogs," she says. You raise an eyebrow, and yet here you are, still single. She throws a piece of bread at you. "It lands in your bowl perfectly," you say quietly, and everyone laughs. Later, when the lamps are lit and the air grows softer, you step outside again. The village has quieted now, just the occasional low voice, a donkey braying somewhere in the distance, the faint rustle of reeds. You walk a short way to the edge of the river. The water glows under the fading sky, smooth as polished stone. You crouch by the bank, dipping your fingers into the cool flow. You can feel the silt sliding gently between them, centuries of stories washing by. You think about how many people before you must have stood here, at this very spot, doing this same small act without even realizing they were part of something eternal. The Nile connects you all, past, present, and everything still to come. A faint splash breaks your reverie. You look up in time to see a heron lifting off, wings stretching wide, droplets falling from its legs like pearls. You can almost imagine the gods watching, smiling quietly, pleased that their river is still alive in the hearts of those who depend on it. You rise, brushing your hands dry on your linen. The air has cooled. The world feels wrapped in calm. You glance back toward your house, glowing faintly with lamplight, and feel a small tug of gratitude for the bread, the frog, the laughter, the river. And as you walk back home under a sky now deepening into indigo, you think, this is what peace must have always sounded like. Soft footsteps on clay, the whisper of water, the sigh of a tired world settling in for sleep. You step inside, close the reed curtain behind you, and stretch out on your mat. The gecko on the wall blinks once, approvingly. The frog on the shelf watches in silence. Outside, the river murmurs, endless and kind. You breathe in, slow and deep. Another day gone. Another story carried downstream.
The night air drifts through your window, thick with the scent of lotus and cool dust. Somewhere outside, a dog barks once, then thinks better of it. You wake before dawn, half dreaming still, caught in that quiet moment when the stars haven't decided whether to leave. The mat beneath you is warm from sleep, the world still wrapped in blue shadows. You sit up slowly, stretching until your spine pops, an ancient sound, older than dynasties. The house is silent except for a faint rustle from the corner. The gecko blinks at you, unimpressed. "Morning," you whisper. It doesn't reply, but you like to imagine it nods. You rise, tie your linen kilt, and slip outside. The sky glows faintly where the horizon kisses the river, streaked with pinks and soft oranges. You inhale deeply, feeling the air shift as the first birds begin to stir. The ibis cry, the herons stretch their wings, and you, like every farmer before you, start another day with the Nile's slow heartbeat guiding you. Before heading to the fields, you stop by the village's small shrine, a humble affair of stone and clay, half hidden among palms. Offerings from yesterday still lie on the altar: wilted lotus flowers, a piece of bread, a few copper fragments. A faint smell of incense lingers in the air, mixed with dust. You light a new stick of incense and murmur a simple prayer to Hapi, the god of the flood, asking for calm waters and generous silt. You add, under your breath, a personal note about not losing your sandals again. The gods appreciate honesty, you think. Historians still argue whether these morning rituals were acts of deep faith or simply habit, part of life's rhythm, like eating or breathing. But you know it doesn't matter. Habit is its own kind of devotion. On your way back, you pass the edge of the village where the potters work. Even at dawn, smoke curls gently from their kilns. The air smells of earth and fire, the timeless duet of creation. You stop for a moment to watch Dedu, the same potter whose perfect bowl still wobbles, kneeling beside his kiln, muttering to himself. He spots you and waves a sooty hand. "Up before Ra himself," he calls out. "Trying to beat the sun," you answer. He snorts. "Good luck. He never loses." You grin and move on. He's probably right. The sun is already climbing, slow but inevitable. Back home, your mother has started breakfast. You help her pour water from the jar into a clay basin, washing the night from your face. The water is cold and you gasp softly, the sensation sharp but pleasant. She hands you a small bowl of leftover lentils from yesterday, warmed and spiced, and a slice of bread Neferet baked. "Eat," she says, "you'll need it." You eat quietly, listening to the morning around you, the clatter of pots, the shuffle of sandals, the distant bray of donkeys. The village is waking, stretching, shaking off dreams. It's a soft chorus, one you've heard every day of your life and still find strangely beautiful. After breakfast, you join your father outside near the irrigation ditches. He's already there, standing with a wooden shovel in hand, studying the channels like a priest reading omens. "The water's low," he mutters. "Might need to open the gate again." The ditches run like veins across the landscape, guiding the Nile's lifeblood to the fields. You help him lift the small gate, a slab of wood wedged into the mud, and the water begins to flow faster, gurgling and laughing like a mischievous child. You crouch beside it, watching the silt swirl. "Perfect," your father says, satisfied. "Let it run for a bit." You nod. This ritual, too, is sacred in its way. Each ditch, each patch of land has its own rhythm, its own needs. You learn them like family secrets. When to open, when to close, when to trust the river, and when to beg it. As the sun rises higher, you spot your sister walking toward the weaving area near the palms. Her arms are full of linen thread, pale as the morning sky. You call after her, "Don't forget the frog." She doesn't turn. "Then tell him to weave faster." You chuckle, wiping your hands on your kilt. Family, eternal source of joy and mild annoyance. Later, when the ditches are flowing smoothly, you walk toward the cluster of women weaving cloth beneath a shaded canopy of reeds. The rhythmic creak of looms fills the air, a sound that's almost hypnotic, like waves or breathing. The weaver's fingers move quickly, expertly, guiding the shuttle through the warp. Threads stretch taut, crossing and joining, becoming something whole. You pause to watch your sister at work. Her brow glistens with sweat, but her expression is calm, focused. "How many cubits today?" you ask. She glances at you without pausing. "Enough to clothe your big mouth." "Ambitious," you reply. The woman beside her chuckles. "Be kind to him," she says. "He brings frogs for luck." Your sister sighs dramatically. "Then let him bring 10 more. I'll need them all." The group laughs softly, the sound blending with the loom's steady pulse. You realize, standing there, that this is the true music of the Nile. Threads crossing, hands moving, laughter mingling with work. Historians believe Egyptian linen was among the finest in the ancient world, woven so tightly it shimmered like light. Some say the secret was in the flax grown near the river. Others say it was the patience of the weavers. Maybe it was both. You suspect it was mostly patience. A faint breeze lifts the edge of the cloth, brushing your arm. It feels cool, impossibly smooth. You think about how much time and care goes into each piece: planting, harvesting, spinning, weaving. Nothing in this world is fast, yet everything eventually finds completion. Maybe that's the Nile's lesson. You sit for a while, just listening. The looms creak, the reeds sway, the birds call overhead. Time folds quietly around you. You could almost fall asleep right here, lulled by the rhythm of human hands. Then a sudden shout startles you. It's Dedu running from his kiln area with a wild grin and something round in his hands. "It's perfect!" he yells, triumphant. "The bowl doesn't wobble!" You stand, half amused, half concerned. "Are you sure?" He holds it up like a newborn. The crowd gathers, curious. He sets it on the ground dramatically. Everyone leans in. The bowl sits perfectly still for 2 seconds, then tips gently to one side. Silence. Then laughter erupts. Even Dedu laughs, clutching his stomach. "Close enough," he gasps. "It's progress." You shake your head, smiling. The gods must be pottery critics. He grins. "Then I'll bribe them with another bowl." And just like that, the village returns to its rhythm, laughing, weaving, shaping, tending. The day stretches on, unhurried and golden. You feel the warmth of belonging, the gentle weight of time passing without rush or regret. By midday, the sun climbs high and the air grows heavy. The fields shimmer in the distance, and even the birds slow their songs. You head back home for rest, passing familiar faces and half-finished jokes. The frog on your shelf will still be there, the gecko will still blink indifferently, and the Nile will still be humming somewhere beyond the reeds. You pause at your door, looking back once more at the quiet village. The smoke rising, the looms swaying, the water glinting between trees. Life here doesn't shout, it hums, it flows. It waits for no one, and yet forgives everyone who lingers. You step inside, the air cool again, and stretch out on your mat. Outside, the cicadas begin their slow song. Your eyelids grow heavy. You smile faintly, whispering to yourself, "Close enough."
By late afternoon, the light changes again. The hard gold of noon softens into something gentle, like honey poured over the world. You wake to that light spilling across your mat, tracing the rough pattern of the reed ceiling above you. For a moment, you lie still, letting the hum of life outside wash over you. A goat bleats somewhere nearby. Someone's child giggles. The rhythmic thump-thump of a woman pounding grain keeps perfect time with your heartbeat. You sit up slowly, blinking the sleep from your eyes. The air inside your home is cooler now, still scented faintly with bread and smoke. The frog amulet seems to be watching you from its perch, smugly overseeing your afternoon nap. "Don't look so proud," you mutter. "You didn't help with the irrigation." Outside, the village is easing into its second wind. The heat has broken, and people are returning to small chores, patching roofs, mending baskets, brushing sand from doorways. You step into the lane and stretch your arms toward the fading sun. The light hits your skin warm but kind, the way a parent's hand might linger on your shoulder. You decide to visit the river again. It's calling in that quiet way it does, a low murmur beneath everything else. You take the long path this time, the one that winds past the cluster of palm trees and the small clay workshop where your cousin Henanu works. He's outside, shirtless, covered in dust, and half-baked ambition, shaping a new batch of bricks. "Still at it?" you call. He wipes his brow, grinning. "If I stop, the walls stop growing. If the walls stop growing, your sister complains about the wind again." You laugh. "So you're building for peace." "I'm building for quiet," he corrects. "Peace is optional." You watch him work for a while, his hands pressing the mixture of mud and straw into wooden molds. Each brick will dry in the sun for days, hardening slowly into something nearly eternal. You've seen walls stand for decades, even centuries, made of the same humble clay. There's something poetic about that, a civilization built from river mud and patience. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians viewed brickmaking as a lowly task or an honorable trade. But watching Henanu work, you can tell it's both. It's sweaty, back-breaking work, sure, but also sacred in its way. Every home, every temple, every wall begins here, in hands like his.
He pauses to rest, leaning on his mold. "You going to the river?" he asks. You nod. "Need to see how high she's risen." "Tell her to behave this year," he says, half joking. "I just fixed my roof." You promise to pass on the message, though you doubt the Nile listens to anyone.
The path narrows as you near the water. The reeds whisper around you, and the air thickens with that familiar, living scent, mud and green and something older than words. The river stretches out before you, wide and calm, reflecting the pink glow of the sky. You kneel by the edge, letting your fingers trail through the cool surface. The current is slow but constant, pulling tiny leaves and bits of silt along with it.
Nearby, two fishermen stand knee-deep in the shallows, casting their nets with practiced rhythm. You watch the arcs of their throws, the nets flaring like silver wings before sinking beneath the surface. They move with quiet concentration, barely speaking except to murmur small encouragements to each other. You wander closer. One of them, an older man with arms like tree roots, grins as he spots you. "Come to work or just to watch?" "To supervise," you reply. "Ah," he says, nodding solemnly, "the most important job." The other fisherman chuckles. "Careful, he'll start charging you taxes for breathing the river air." You raise your hands in mock surrender, only if it comes with dinner.
Their laughter blends with the soft slosh of water, the rustle of reeds, and the distant cry of a heron. A sudden tug on one of the nets draws everyone's attention. The older man pulls hard, and the water explodes in motion, fish wriggling, flashing silver. He hauls it up, triumphant, droplets raining down like tiny gems. The catch is good. Catfish, tilapia, even a small perch. He grins. The river is kind today. Maybe she likes supervisors, you say. He winks. Then stay all season. You sit on a smooth rock nearby as they empty the net into a woven basket. The smell of fish is strong, but oddly comforting. It smells like work, like livelihood, like stories being written in ripples. You glance at the fishermen's feet and notice small charms tied around their ankles. Tiny shells, bits of bone, maybe even frog-shaped beads. "What are those for?" you ask. The younger fisherman shrugs. "Protection," he says, "from crocodiles." You look at the calm water and raise an eyebrow. You think that works? He grins. "It's worked so far." He's right, of course. Faith is like that. It doesn't need proof, just persistence. Historians still debate whether crocodiles were truly common this far north during your time, or whether their reputation as man-eaters grew from a few unlucky encounters. Either way, the fear remains. You can almost feel it in the stillness between splashes, in the quick glances the men give to the darker patches of water. As the sun dips lower, the fishermen finish their work, gathering the nets and baskets. You help them drag one heavy basket up onto the shore, your feet sinking into the damp earth. "You'll eat well tonight," you say. The older man smiles, showing a few missing teeth. "If my wife doesn't give it all to the neighbors first." "That's the real danger," you reply, "not the crocodiles." He laughs, clapping your shoulder before heading back toward the village. You linger a moment longer, watching the river settle back into its rhythm. The sky above is streaked now with deep orange and purple. The air hums softly with the first sounds of evening, the buzz of insects, the distant call of frogs. You start walking home as twilight deepens, the path glowing faintly in the dim light. Along the way, you pass small clusters of people, children chasing each other with palm fronds, women washing clay pots, an old man sitting on a stool carving a piece of wood. You stop to watch him for a moment. "What are you making?" you ask. He doesn't look up. "A cat?" You peer closer. It does, in fact, resemble a cat, sort of. Looks like it's smiling, you say. It knows something you don't, he replies cryptically. Then, after a pause, mostly about mice. You grin. Then it's wiser than me. Everyone is, eventually, he says, still carving. You leave him to his mysterious cat and continue on, smiling to yourself. The air grows cooler, softer, as the first stars begin to shimmer faintly overhead. By the time you reach your home, the lamps are already lit. Your family sits on the roof, sharing the evening meal. You climb up to join them, settling into the familiar circle of flickering light. Tonight's dinner is simple: bread, fish, and a small bowl of dates for dessert. You take a bite of the fish and close your eyes for a moment. It tastes of the river and the day's quiet victories. Your father says little. Your mother hums a song without words. Your sister teases you about smelling like mud. You throw a date pit at her. She dodges it easily. The gecko, somewhere nearby, makes a tiny chirping sound, like it's laughing too. As the night settles in, you lean back on your elbows, gazing at the stars. The Milky Way stretches above you, like spilled salt across black linen. Somewhere out there, the gods are probably holding court, arguing about the flood season, or maybe about why humans snore. You smile to yourself, breathing in the cool night air. The river whispers softly below, the world wrapped once more in calm. You think of the fisherman, the brickmaker, the potter, the weavers, all tiny parts of this grand, gentle machinery of life along the Nile. Everyone moving in rhythm, like reeds swaying to the same invisible song. You close your eyes, listening. Even the silence hums.
Night in ancient Egypt comes quietly, like a soft breath against the ear. There's no sudden darkness, only a slow melting of color. The sky fades from gold to violet, then to a deep blue-black that seems to shimmer with life. Stars reveal themselves one by one until the heavens are dusted with light. You stay on the roof a while longer, lying back on the woven mat beside your sister. The air is cool now, almost sweet. From somewhere nearby comes the faint smell of burning incense. Someone must be making an offering before sleep. The smoke drifts lazily upward, vanishing into the night. Your mother gathers the last of the bowls and clay plates, humming softly. The song she hums is older than you, older than even she can remember. It's not really a song for words, more a rhythm, a soothing pattern meant to please the gods and calm the soul. You find yourself mouthing the tune too. Below, the river murmurs faintly in the dark. A few frogs croak from the reeds. Far off, a dog barks once, then stops. The world feels vast and still, as if holding its breath. You roll to your side and watch the horizon. Out there, somewhere beyond the black curve of the land, are the deserts, vast, silent, endless. You've never been far into them, but travelers say they go on forever, shimmering with heat by day and freezing under a million stars by night. They say spirits wander there too, lost souls carried on the wind. Your father once told you that the desert is where the gods walk when they want to be alone. You liked that image, a divine solitude, a god thinking under the same stars you see now. Do you think they ever get lonely? You ask suddenly. Your sister turns to you, frowning. Who? The gods. She thinks for a moment. They have each other. That doesn't always help, you say quietly. She doesn't answer. The two of you lie in silence for a while, watching the constellations turn slowly overhead. You know a few of their names. There's Sa, the constellation of Orion, Osiris to the Egyptians, lord of the afterlife. Near him shines Sopdet, the bright star of Sirius, which the priests say marks the rising of the Nile. You trace them with your finger, connecting invisible lines in the sky. When you were younger, you thought the stars were holes in the roof of heaven, tiny cracks through which divine light escaped. Your grandmother told you that souls of the righteous became stars after death, lighting the night to guide the living. You liked that idea too. Below you, someone laughs, a soft, sleepy sound from another rooftop. The village is alive, even now, though quietly. You can hear low conversations, a flute playing somewhere, the creak of rope as someone lowers a water jar into the well. The air is full of small human noises that blend into something peaceful. Your father joins you on the roof again. He moves slowly, his joints stiff from years of farming. He settles beside you without speaking, handing you a small clay cup filled with cool barley beer. You sip it gratefully. It tastes earthy, faintly sour, refreshing. "The flood will come soon," he says after a while. You nod. "The priests say the stars are right." "They usually are," he says, "but the river decides." There's no bitterness in his tone, just quiet acceptance. The river gives, the river takes, always has, always will. He leans back, looking at the sky. "You know," he says, "my father used to say that when the flood comes, it's not just water, it's memory." Memory? Yes. The Nile remembers everything. The footsteps of the first people, the laughter of the builders, even the tears of those who've gone. It carries them all, year after year. You think about that. It makes sense, somehow. The river never truly stops moving. It's a living archive, carrying silt, seeds, and stories from one generation to the next. Maybe when you touch its water, you're touching time itself. Your father drinks from his cup and sighs contentedly. "One day," he says, "you'll tell your children about nights like this." "Maybe," you reply softly, "if they'll listen." "They will," he says. "Everyone listens to stories about the river." The breeze picks up, fluttering the edge of your blanket. You pull it closer and rest your head on your arm. The rhythmic hum of crickets begins somewhere nearby, weaving through the air like a quiet heartbeat. Your sister has already drifted off to sleep, her breathing slow and even. Your mother sits below, inside the house, whispering a short prayer. You can't hear the words, but you know what she's asking. Health, calm waters, gentle seasons, simple things, eternal things. For a while, you drift between waking and dreaming, that soft twilight space where thoughts lose their edges. You imagine floating down the Nile at night, past temples, past flickering lamps, past crocodiles sleeping on sandbars. The stars reflect in the black water, doubling the sky. Somewhere in that dream river, you can almost hear voices, not of people, but of time itself. You dream of the temple at Karnak, its columns stretching into infinity. You dream of scribes bent over papyrus by lamplight, their reed pens whispering across the page. You dream of the goddess Seshat, recording all things that ever were and ever will be. In the dream, you ask her a question. Why do people forget? She looks at you with eyes like polished stone and answers, because remembering everything would break the heart. When you wake again, the stars have shifted. The air is cooler still. You can hear distant laughter, perhaps from the fishermen who've returned from celebrating their good catch. You roll over, watching the horizon for the first signs of dawn. The eastern edge of the sky is paling slightly, gray, then faint gold. You know that soon the sun will rise again, burning the dew from the rooftops, waking the village to another day of work and ritual and quiet joy. You sit up, stretching. The world smells of damp earth and life. Your father is already awake, coiling a rope, preparing for the day. He looks at you and smiles. "Up early?" he says. "Didn't sleep much," you admit. "Too many dreams?" "Too much thinking," he chuckles. "That's worse." He hands you a small basket of dates. "Eat, the sun's coming." As you bite into the first fruit, the sweetness fills your mouth, the taste of new day, of energy and warmth. The horizon brightens quickly now. The first rays of sunlight strike the tops of the palms, then spill down into the streets, waking the animals, glinting on jars, shimmering off the river. The Nile glows gold once again. You stand there a moment, watching it flow, thinking of your father's words. Memory. Yes, perhaps that's what the Nile is. A memory that never stops breathing. Somewhere, the gecko chirps. The frogs fall silent as if in respect. The day begins again, same as ever, yet somehow always new. And as you watch that eternal river gleam beneath the sun, you realize something simple, something peaceful. There is beauty in repetition. There is comfort in routine. There is a kind of quiet grace in being one small life carried gently along the current of time. You breathe in deeply, the air fresh and golden, and step down from the roof. Another day waits, full of work, of laughter, of the river's patient song. The wheel turns, the Nile flows, and you, small but eternal in your way, flow with it. The river is alive this morning, whispering in low tones as you step barefoot onto the dock. Wooden planks creak under your feet, warm already from the rising sun. The air smells of silt and wet reeds, of something ancient and endlessly familiar. You pause to let your eyes adjust to the shimmer of the water. It's dazzling, silver where the sun hits it, deep green in the shade. Fishermen are already out, their nets unfurling in graceful arcs, catching the light like liquid silk. You wave to one of them, a friend of your father's, who nods back lazily, oar balanced against his shoulder. A small reed skiff waits for you, tied loosely to a post worn smooth by time. It's nothing fancy, bundles of papyrus bound tight with rope, sturdy enough to hold two people if neither moves too suddenly. You untie it carefully, stepping aboard with the slow balance of someone who's learned the river's rhythm. It rocks gently, greeting you. As you push away from the dock, the sounds of the village begin to fade. The chatter of women washing clothes, the bray of donkeys, the slap of sandals on mudbrick paths, all grow softer, replaced by the hush of the Nile's current. The only other sound is the soft splash of your pole dipping into the water, and the occasional whisper of wind through the reeds. You drift for a while, not rowing, not steering, just letting the river carry you. It feels like floating through time itself. On one bank, fields stretch green and gold, dotted with workers bent low among the barley. On the other, palms sway in slow motion, their reflections rippling like lazy thoughts. You reach over the side, trailing your fingers through the water. It's cool, silky, alive. A few lotus flowers bob nearby, their pale petals just beginning to open to the light. You pluck one gently, careful not to disturb the stem too much. For a moment, you study it, the perfect symmetry, the delicate scent, the way it seems to glow faintly in the morning air. Egyptians love these flowers for a reason. They say the sun itself was born from a giant lotus that rose out of the primordial waters. You can almost imagine it, the first dawn blooming in silence. As you drift farther downstream, you pass a larger barge laden with goods. The men aboard are sunburned and shirtless, singing a slow work song to keep time as they pull the boat forward. The melody is repetitive and comforting, a chant older than language. One of them calls out to you, joking about how your little reed boat looks like it might prefer to sink than float. You laugh, offering him a lotus in mock peace. He grins, tossing you a dried fish in return. A fair trade, you think. Cargo boats like his are the arteries of Egypt, moving grain, pottery, linen, even livestock from one settlement to another. Without them, the kingdom would grind to a halt. The Nile isn't just a river, It's the great road of the world, flowing both ways depending on wind and current. You remember hearing that the prevailing north wind allows boats to sail south even while the river itself runs north. It's almost poetic, the river giving and the wind taking, each balancing the other, like breath in and breath out. Somewhere nearby, a harp begins to play. A small one, probably a traveling musician aboard another boat. The notes drift over the water, soft and melancholic. The melody seems to match the movement of the current, swelling and fading like waves of memory. You lean back, closing your eyes, letting the sound wash over you. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians invented that kind of harp themselves or borrowed it from the lands farther east. But at this moment, it doesn't matter. The sound feels native to the river, as if the Nile itself hums through the strings. When you open your eyes again, the sun has climbed higher, painting the world in pale gold. The air shimmers with heat, and small insects hover over the surface like drifting dust motes. You steer toward the west bank, where tall papyrus stands like a wall of green. The stalks rustle softly, their feathery tops swaying in rhythm with your heartbeat. You spot movement, a heron, tall and patient, stalking through the shallows. It lifts one long leg, pauses, then lowers it silently. Its reflection moves with eerie precision. You stop rowing, unwilling to disturb it. A moment later, the bird strikes lightning fast, snatching a fish from the water. The splash echoes, then fades. Life and death here are quiet, efficient, and unceremonious. You think of the goddess Nekbet, who takes the form of a vulture, but protects the people of Upper Egypt. The heron reminds you of her somehow, graceful, watchful, ancient. Maybe every creature on this river is a fragment of something divine, a reminder that life is never separate from spirit. Further downstream, you pass another small boat. A man and his son are casting a net together, their motions perfectly synchronized. The boy laughs when the net catches only weeds, but his father ruffles his hair and says, "The river gives what it wants, not what you ask." You smile at that. It's a truth that doesn't just apply to fishing. You continue onward, occasionally dipping your hand into the water to feel its steady, relentless pull. Beneath you, the Nile holds stories no one remembers anymore. Shipwrecks buried in silt, lost amulets, whispers of prayers once spoken and forgotten. You wonder what archaeologists thousands of years from now might find if they ever dredged this stretch of water. Maybe they'd find your little reed boat, preserved like a leaf pressed between pages of time. For a while, you let yourself imagine drifting all the way to the delta, where the river opens into the great blue of the Mediterranean. You picture waves taller than temples, seagulls instead of ibises, the scent of salt instead of clay. The idea feels both thrilling and terrifying. You probably wouldn't survive that trip in this fragile skiff, but still, it's nice to dream. A crocodile surfaces nearby, not far off, a slow, silent ripple in the water. You freeze, every muscle tight. It glides parallel to your boat, eyes half-lidded, as if you're not even worth the trouble. Its scaly back gleams in the light, ancient and menacing. You remember what the priests say. Sobek, the crocodile god, protects those who respect him and devours those who don't. You whisper a quick, respectful greeting under your breath. The crocodile blinks once, then slips back beneath the surface, vanishing without a sound. When your heart finally slows, you laugh quietly. "Maybe Sobek just wanted to make sure I wasn't stealing fish," you murmur. The reeds don't answer, but a dragonfly buzzes past as if in agreement. By midday, the heat grows intense, pressing down like an invisible weight. You steer toward a shaded inlet, anchoring the skiff between two thick stands of papyrus. The air there is cooler, filled with the soft hum of insects. You eat a small meal of bread and dried figs, then lie back in the boat, arms behind your head. Above you, the sky seems endless. A hawk circles lazily, its shadow flickering across your face. You drift into half sleep, lulled by the rocking of the boat. The river's rhythm feels like breathing. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The smell of water and sunlight fills your senses. In that drowsy space, your mind wanders. You picture the pharaoh's great boats sailing these same waters, their decks lined with banners, their oars flashing in perfect harmony. You imagine priests traveling to temples farther south, carrying offerings and scrolls, their chants mingling with the splash of paddles. Every drop of this river has touched 1,000 lives before yours, and one day, long after you're gone, it will touch 1,000 more. You smile faintly at that thought. It's humbling and comforting all at once. When you finally sit up, the sun has shifted westward. The river gleams bronze now, the world quieter, calmer. You untie your boat and push off again, heading slowly home. The breeze picks up, filling the papyrus sails of a distant vessel. Someone aboard waves, and you wave back, your reflection rippling alongside you like a companion. The Nile hums softly, carrying you north, carrying you through history, through memory, through the gentle, eternal heartbeat of the world. By late afternoon, the village feels like it is breathing with you. The sun has shifted, slanting gold and amber across rooftops and mudbrick walls. Shadows stretch long and lean, brushing across alleys and courtyards as if the day itself were yawning. You step out of your home and pause to take it all in. The faint smell of baking bread from Neferet's oven, the soft murmur of children playing near the wells, the distant rhythmic clank of the blacksmith's hammer. You take a deep breath. It's the scent of work, of life being quietly tended, of time folding into itself. This is a slow, endless rhythm, and for a moment, you let yourself just exist within it. Your first stop is the communal granary. Barley sacks are stacked neatly along the walls, and the air smells faintly sweet and earthy. You run your fingers over the coarse fabric of a sack, feeling the tiny grains shift inside like sand. You remember learning as a child that these grains will feed your neighbors, your family, even travelers who stumble upon the village. Each kernel is a promise, a small act of survival in a world both generous and harsh. Nearby, an older woman sits spinning thread from flax, her hands moving almost too fast to follow. The shuttle hums softly as it moves back and forth, the rhythm hypnotic. You pause, fascinated by the way her fingers guide the fiber, twisting it, strengthening it, making it whole. Historians still argue whether flax was processed primarily for linen or if smaller amounts were used for ritual purposes. But to you, each thread seems sacred, a tangible connection to the past. You walk along the narrow lane that separates the granary from the river's edge. There's a low buzz in the air, bees perhaps, or just the warm day stirring insects from their hiding places. You can hear children laughing in the distance, their voices bouncing off walls and water. They chase each other with sticks, yelling and calling out names, oblivious to the river's patient flow. You smile faintly. Life is loud sometimes, and that's a kind of music too. You reach the edge of the fields, where your father and some neighbors are already tending to the crops. You kneel beside a small patch of barley, the soft soil warm beneath your hands. Water trickles gently from the irrigation channels, carrying the Nile's memory along with it. You dip your fingers in, feeling the silt slip between your fingers. It's fine and grainy, earthy and alive. Your father wipes sweat from his forehead and smiles at you. "The river gives what it wants," he says again, echoing the words you've heard so often. Sometimes more than we expect, sometimes less, but always it gives. You nod. His words are simple, but in them lies the kind of wisdom only patience can teach. You move through the rows, checking the barley for signs of disease or pests. A few leaves are curled, a few stalks bent under the weight of small birds that landed unnoticed. You gently adjust them, giving life a small nudge in the right direction. Nearby, a small group of children is learning to catch fish in the shallow channels. Their hands are quick, their laughter sharp. An older boy demonstrates a net technique, tossing it into the water with a flourish. The children mimic him, stumbling, falling, laughing. You can almost hear the future in their voices, the years yet to come, each child carrying a story forward like a floating reed. You pause a moment to observe the river again. It seems to move differently in the afternoon, slower, almost thoughtful. You watch a leaf drifting along, carried gently by the current, and realize it mirrors your own day, drifting from task to task, carried along by a rhythm larger than yourself. You lift your hand and let the leaf float past, a quiet acknowledgement of being part of the river's eternal song. Your mother calls from the lane, reminding you it's almost time to prepare the evening meal. You rise, brushing the soil from your hands, and make your way back toward the village. On your path, you pass Henino working on more bricks. He pauses to grin at you, holding up a perfect, freshly molded brick. "See," he says proudly, "the walls will stand forever. Or at least until Sobek decides otherwise." You laugh, shaking your head, and continue past him toward the cluster of reed huts where Neferet is already kneading dough. The smell is intoxicating, warm and sweet, filling the air like sunlight trapped in flour and water. She glances up and waves, her hands coated in sticky dough. "Don't get any ideas," she says, smirking. "You'll have to help, or you get no bread." You roll up your sleeves and kneel beside her, letting your hands sink into the mixture. The texture is soft and yielding, the smell of yeast strong and comforting. You press and fold, laugh and joke, letting the tactile rhythm calm your mind. The bread, like the river, seems alive, shifting and changing with each careful motion. Historians still argue about the exact recipes used by ancient Egyptians, but the essentials were simple: barley or emmer wheat, water, sometimes honey, sometimes dates. What mattered was care and timing, the same qualities that guide life along the Nile. The afternoon stretches lazily around you. Outside, shadows lengthen, and the light softens, reflecting off the river in gentle glimmers. You rise, wiping flour from your hands, and watch as the sun sinks lower. The villagers are finishing their tasks, collecting tools, gathering small bundles of produce to carry home. You notice the blacksmith hammering one last piece of copper into shape, sparks flying like miniature stars before fading into the warm air. You move toward the riverbank again, carrying a small loaf for yourself. The water catches the sunset, glowing amber and pink, reflecting the sky with almost magical intensity. You tear a piece of bread and toss it gently into the water, imagining it feeding the small fish below. A faint ripple spreads outward, swallowing your gift and returning to the endless flow. Nearby, a fisherman untangles his net. You greet him softly, and he nods in return, eyes crinkling with the comfort of shared routine. The river provides for everyone, if they are patient enough to receive it. You watch him work for a while, the rhythmic pull and fold of the net mirroring the movement of your own hands across the dough earlier. As twilight descends, the village quiets further. Children are called home, animals are tethered or bided to their shelters, and lamps are lit in humble homes. Smoke curls gently from chimneys, scented with dried reeds and small fires. The air cools, carrying the subtle fragrance of earth and water, of human life unfolding in quiet persistence. You sit on your doorstep for a moment, letting the last warmth of the day linger on your skin. The gecko clings to the wall beside you, blinking in lazy approval. The frog amulet catches the fading light, glimmering faintly as if satisfied with your day's small efforts. The world feels steady, reliable, patient. You realize the rhythm of life here. The river, the sun, the labor, the laughter is a kind of meditation, a gentle pulse that guides your heart as surely as it guides the Nile. As darkness deepens, the stars begin to twinkle again, pale and far, yet familiar. You notice a faint constellation of Orion, Saw, rising in the east, signaling another night, another cycle, another chance to witness the river's eternal flow. And you, small among all this, feel a quiet comfort in being a part of it. Hands in the soil, fingers in the water, eyes lifted toward the heavens, heart aligned with the timeless rhythm of the Nile. The evening settles over the village like a soft linen shawl, warm where it wraps around you, cool where it brushes against bare skin. The sun has vanished beyond the desert ridge, leaving behind a fading glow that lingers on the horizon, a faint promise of tomorrow. Lamps flicker to life one by one, small amber points scattered across rooftops and doorways. You climb back up to your own roof, a familiar sanctuary under the rising night. The mat you laid out earlier still holds a trace of the day's warmth. Beside you, your mother sits cross-legged, her hands busy with mending a tear in her tunic by lamplight. The flame dances with each whisper of the wind, sending thin curls of smoke upward into the dark. Around you, the village hums gently with the sounds of night. A baby cries somewhere, soothed by a lullaby. From another roof, laughter drifts up, a deep, rolling sound, followed by a quiet hush as someone tells a story. The air is rich with scent, roasting lentils, smoke, and the faint sweetness of date wine. The day's work is over, but the stories are just beginning. You lean back, folding your hands behind your head, eyes drawn upward. The stars here are impossibly bright, each one a perfect pinprick of light against the deep indigo sky. You recognize a few, old friends now. Orion the hunter, which the priests call Sa, Sirius, the bright star Sopdet, whose rising heralds the coming flood. Somewhere far above, the gods move among them, silent and watchful. Your father joins you, carrying a clay jug of beer and a bowl of roasted chickpeas. He settles beside you with a sigh, the sound of a man content with the simplicity of the moment. "You've earned this," he says, handing you the bowl. You grin. "You say that every night." "And every night, it's true." He takes a long drink, then gestures toward the nearby roof where the laughter continues. "They're starting their stories early tonight." You nod, chewing slowly, listening. The storyteller's voice rises, a rhythmic tone, calm but commanding. It's an older man, one of the fishermen. His words flow like the river, deliberate and measured. "You've heard this one before," your father says with a smile, "about the time the river forgot to rise." You have, of course, but that doesn't matter. Stories, like the Nile, are meant to repeat. They're not just for amusement, they're a kind of remembering. You listen as the tale drifts across the rooftops, carried on the warm night air. "It was long ago," the fisherman begins, "when the gods still walked among us, and the river sang with their voices. One year, the Nile grew silent. The waters did not rise. The fields cracked, the fish vanished, and the air was full of dust." He pauses for effect, letting the quiet settle before continuing. "The people prayed to Hapi, god of the flood, but he did not answer. Some said he had grown tired of our ingratitude. Others whispered that the priests had failed to honor him properly. The pharaoh himself sent offerings, incense, gold, even a crocodile carved from alabaster, but still the river slept." You can hear soft gasps from the listeners, though everyone knows how the story ends. Still, they lean in. The comfort of repetition is its own magic. One night, the fisherman continues, a humble farmer went to the riverbank and sat in silence. He did not offer gifts or prayers. He only told the river his truth, that he was afraid, that his children were hungry, that he still loved the Nile, even in its silence. Your mother stops sewing, listening now too. The next morning, the man says, the river began to rise, slowly, gently, until it overflowed its banks. And when the farmer saw it, he wept, for he knew that sometimes the gods do not need gold or temples. They need honesty. There's a soft murmur of approval from the listeners, and then silence. Someone coughs. Someone else sighs. The story has landed, quietly but deeply. Your father looks over at you, smiling. That one's been told since before my grandfather's time. Still feels new, doesn't it? You nod, like the river itself. He chuckles. Exactly. Never the same water, never the same words. You sit together in comfortable silence, watching the stars pulse faintly overhead. The frogs have started their chorus again, and somewhere beyond the fields, a jackal calls. The sound is distant but clear, an echo from the desert. Your mother hums softly, a tune without words, matching her sewing needle's rhythm. After a while, your father starts his own story, one you've never heard before. There's a tale, he begins, of a man who dreamed of crossing the sky in a boat made of light. You blink, intrigued. Light? He nods. He built it piece by piece, threads of dawn woven together, starlight bound with resin from sacred trees. Everyone laughed at him, of course, said he was mad. But one night, he pushed his boat into the sky and sailed away among the stars. Some say he still sails there, lighting the heavens so we don't get lost. That's not in the temple scrolls, you say teasingly. Not everything worth remembering is, he replies, eyes twinkling. It's a small exchange, but something about it settles warmly in your chest. The night, the stars, the smell of roasted chickpeas, all of it feels stitched together, like threads in a linen tapestry. From another rooftop, a young woman begins to sing. Her voice is low, steady, and hypnotic. The song isn't joyful or sad, it's something in between. You can't understand every word, but you recognize the tone. Gratitude. It's the sound of someone giving thanks for another day, another flood, another breath. Historians still argue whether Egyptians truly believed music had magical power, or if it was simply an offering of beauty. But as her song carries across the night, you know it holds both. Each note seems to brush against the stars themselves. You lie back again, eyes half closed, listening. The song drifts into your bones, slow and gentle, like the rocking of a boat on calm water. For a moment, you feel the world blur at its edges. The boundaries between earth and sky, river and air, waking and dream all soften. In that quiet space, you almost think you can hear the river's own voice beneath the singing, a deep, wordless hum that has been there since before the first humans stood on its banks. You imagine Hapi, the river god, gliding through the depths, carrying the secrets of ages in his arms. Maybe he listens to your stories too, the same way you listen to his. Your father yawns, stretching his arms. "Time for sleep," he murmurs. "The river will wait for us tomorrow." You nod, pulling your linen blanket up to your chest. The air has cooled now, carrying the faint scent of night-blooming flowers. You glance once more toward the sky, where the stars shimmer like reflections on dark water. As your eyes grow heavy, the last thing you hear is the river's soft murmur, mingling with the echo of stories, old words, new dreams, and the gentle rhythm of a people who have always lived by the same eternal tide. The night folds around you, calm and endless. The stars watch silently, like kind old friends keeping guard. And somewhere beyond them, maybe that man in his boat of light sails on, guiding dreamers home. The morning sun stretches over the horizon, spilling light across the rooftops and bathing the river in soft gold. You awaken on your mat, the warmth of sleep still lingering in your limbs. A cool breeze drifts through the open doorway, carrying the faint scent of mud, reeds, and the distant flowering of lotus. The village is stirring, but gently. The day begins with slow steps and quiet breaths, not the rush of modern chaos. You rise and tie your linen kilt, the fabric soft and familiar against your skin. Your bare feet touch the cool earth as you step outside. A dog snuffles along the path, a rooster crows in the distance, and the faint rustle of palms frames the quiet rhythm of life around you. You inhale deeply, letting the sense of the Nile fill your senses. The river always carries its own perfume: water, silt, fish, and green plants. You decide to wander toward the reeds along the riverbank. The path is soft beneath your feet, dotted with tiny flowers that you hadn't noticed yesterday. You kneel, brushing the petals gently between your fingers. There's a tenderness in small things like this, the kind that can lull a busy mind into calm, reminding you that the world is vast, yet infinitely detailed. A small skiff rests moored nearby. You step aboard, feeling it rock gently under your weight. The current is slow this morning, the Nile patient and deliberate. As you drift, the reeds scrape softly against the sides of your boat, producing a whispering, comforting hum. Somewhere nearby, a heron lifts from the shallows, wings slicing the air silently. The reflection of the bird shimmers in the water, doubled by the river, as if the world is folding in on itself. You steer gently downstream, passing clusters of farmers tending to early morning chores. You recognize faces, neighbors, cousins, friends, each moving with a rhythm shaped by centuries of knowledge. Some carry baskets of barley, others haul clay pots, and some simply pause to feel the earth beneath their hands. You wave to Henanu, still working on bricks along the bank, and he waves back, smudged with mud and sun, a grin on his face that seems eternal. Historians still argue whether the ancient Egyptians viewed brickmaking as a sacred craft or a mundane necessity, but you suspect it's both. Every brick laid, every structure built contributes to the ongoing rhythm of the village, the slow heartbeat of civilization carried along the river. Further downstream, you notice the glint of nets being cast by fishermen in shallow water. The men move with careful precision, tossing and gathering, their bodies bending and stretching in quiet harmony. One of them notices you and nods, a wordless greeting that carries decades of understanding and trust. You remain still, letting the motion of the river and the nets become a meditation, a gentle lull for your mind and body. The river flows steadily, its surface dotted with ripples that catch the sun. Small fish dart beneath, and you remember stories of Sobek, the crocodile god, who watches over both people and river alike. You glance at the water, half expecting to see the glint of a scaly back, but all is calm, serene, and patient. The stories are reminders, not threats. Faith here is as much about respect as it is about survival. A flock of ibises sweeps across the sky, their long legs trailing, wings beating slowly. You follow their movement, imagining their flight tracing ancient paths carved in the air above the Nile. They are messengers, silent and deliberate, as if the river itself has lent them its patience. You watch until they disappear over the horizon, feeling your own heart align with the rhythm of their journey. You pull into a small inlet where the water is calm and the shadows of reeds create dark stripes across the surface. Here, the world seems to slow even further. You step out and feel the mud squish between your toes, cool and grounding. The river is alive beneath you, moving, breathing, holding memory in its current. You pick up a few small stones, smooth and warm from the sun, tossing them gently into the water. Each makes a tiny ripple, disappearing into the endless flow. You think of the stories that have passed down this river, those carried by boats, by hands, by birds, by the wind. A small family of ducks glides past, quacking softly. Their movements are careful, almost ceremonial, weaving through the reeds with precision. You sit at the edge of the water, letting your hands trail through it. It feels silky and cool, alive with a gentle pulse. You can almost feel the Nile's history through the vibration of the current, carrying the weight of lives lived and lost, of festivals, prayers, and silent moments like this one. You rise and continue along the bank, passing a small hut where a woman is spinning flax. The rhythmic motion of her hands creates a soft, hypnotic sound. Threads of pale linen slide through her fingers, strengthened and aligned by centuries of knowledge. Historians still debate whether the Egyptians prized flax for utility, ritual, or both, but in that moment you only see her devotion. Every motion is deliberate, every thread a quiet echo of generations past. Nearby, children are playing with sticks, their laughter carrying across the water. You pause to watch as one boy attempts to balance along a narrow beam of driftwood, wobbling precariously. He falls into the shallow water with a small splash, laughter erupting from him and the others. You chuckle quietly. Life is fleeting, fragile, and wonderfully resilient, a delicate balance that the river seems to understand instinctively. You resume drifting downstream, the afternoon sunlight warm but soft, filtered through the palms along the bank. Small insects hover over the surface, reflecting the light like tiny jewels. The river hums beneath you, carrying leaves, petals, and whispered prayers along its path. You reach over the side, letting your fingers glide through the water, feeling the silt swirl around them. It's grounding, centering, and you close your eyes briefly, savoring the sensation. The day stretches lazily, the world moving with a gentle, patient rhythm. You pass a small dock where traders are unloading clay jars, each stamped with symbols that tell the story of distant lands and hands that never met yours. The air smells faintly of barley, lotus, and sun-warmed clay. The combination is intoxicating in its simplicity, a reminder that even the smallest details carry history and meaning. As the sun lowers toward the horizon, painting the water in gold and amber streaks, you begin to head back toward the village. The river carries you with its quiet insistence, a constant, steady pulse that seems older than thought itself. Along the bank, the shadows of palms stretch long, bending lazily toward the water. You step out of the skiff and feel the warmth of earth and reeds beneath your feet. The village is quieting for the evening. Smoke curls from hearths. The soft murmur of conversation drifts from houses, and the first stars begin to pierce the dimming sky. You pause, taking in the scene. The river, the fields, the distant hills, the village settling into its nightly rhythm. Every sound, every scent, every movement feels deliberate, eternal, and peaceful. You glance at your hands, feeling the warmth of sun and the coolness of river water mingling in your skin. You realize that life along the Nile is measured in small, patient gestures, tending crops, casting nets, weaving threads, telling stories. It's a rhythm that doesn't rush, that doesn't clamor for attention, yet holds everything steady. And as night falls, you sit on the riverbank, letting the gentle pulse of the Nile flow through you. The river, the reeds, the birds, the villagers, all are part of a living, breathing symphony that has been playing for centuries and will continue long after you are gone. Here, in the quiet, you feel your place in that rhythm, a single note in an endless song. The night settles over the village like a soft, familiar blanket. The stars are bright tonight, scattered across the sky like spilled grains of wheat, glimmering faintly against the deep blue-black of evening. You step onto the roof, careful not to wake your sister, and let the cool air brush your skin. The breeze carries a faint scent of reeds and river mud, mixing with the aroma of bread cooling on doorsteps and fires burning low in distant huts. The Nile lies quiet now, a slow pulse reflecting the light of the stars and the crescent moon. You lean over the edge of the roof, watching the water ripple gently against the banks. Somewhere in the reeds, a frog croaks softly, a steady accompaniment to the lullaby of the village. Life along the river has a rhythm, one that flows in cycles, always moving yet unhurried, echoing the gentle heartbeats of the people who live beside it. You decide to wander along the riverbank. The sand is cool underfoot, a relief after the day's warmth. Small creatures stir, geckos dart between shadows, and the soft rustle of small mammals can be heard in the undergrowth. You pause to watch a kingfisher skim low over the water, its wings catching moonlight in short, brilliant flashes. It dives and emerges with a tiny fish, swallowing it quickly before taking flight again. Even in darkness, the river teems with life, hidden yet persistent. As you walk, you notice the fishermen returning from their evening outings. Their small skiffs cut through the dark water, lanterns swinging gently from the masts. They speak in hushed tones, careful not to disturb the calm night, and you imagine the rhythm of their work, the cast of nets, the steady pull, the occasional splash, all choreographed to the river's slow pulse. You pause to greet one of them. He nods, tired but satisfied, a few glistening fish balanced in a woven basket. "Good catch?" you ask softly. He smiles, holding up the basket. "Enough to share," he says. Sharing is as much a part of life along the Nile as the river itself. Everyone takes what they need, leaving the rest for neighbors, for friends, for travelers who happen by. You nod, thinking of the tiny rituals that shape each day. The barter of bread for fish, a loaf for a handful of dates, a wave for a smile. These small exchanges are the glue that holds the village together, almost invisible yet essential. You continue along the bank, following the gentle curve of the river. The reeds sway softly in the night breeze, whispering against each other as if sharing secrets. You run your fingers along a stalk, feeling its delicate, fibrous texture. Historians still argue whether papyrus was more valuable as writing material or as a building resource, but you feel its versatility in your hands, a tangible connection to the cleverness and resourcefulness of your people. In the distance, you see the faint glow of a small fire atop the roof of a neighboring home. A family sits around it, sharing a simple evening meal, the smoke curling upward like a ribbon. The scent carries over the water, mingling with the natural smells of the river and reeds. It's peaceful, grounding. You remember your grandmother's words. Life is built of small fires, each one keeping the darkness at bay. You watch the flames dance, hypnotized by the gentle movement. You wander closer to the temple area, where the priests are performing their evening rites. The low chant of their voices drifts across the water, rhythmic and resonant. You don't understand every word, but the sound is soothing, like the pulse of the river made audible. You pause, letting the sound wash over you, imagining the gods themselves listening from above, approving or perhaps simply observing. The priest's movements are precise and deliberate, hands raised, offerings placed carefully on stone altars. Each motion feels ancient, eternal, steeped in knowledge passed down through generations. Further along, a small group of children sits by the river's edge, whispering and laughing quietly. They are tossing pebbles into the water, watching the ripples spread and disappear. You join them briefly, dropping a stone of your own, watching it disturb the glassy surface, and imagining that your small action will travel down the river, unseen but not forgotten. The children giggle, chasing after the echoes of their own throws, their joy quiet yet full of life. Above, a constellation emerges slowly, Orion, or Saw as the priests call him. You trace its lines with your eyes, thinking of the stories woven into the stars. They guide planting and harvest, festivals and prayers. The stars remind you that everything has a rhythm, from the celestial bodies above to the gentle push of the river below. You remember your father saying, "The Nile flows because the stars watch, and the stars watch because the Nile flows." There's a sort of infinite loop in that thought, comforting in its symmetry. You pause to watch the reflection of the night sky on the river. The surface is slightly disturbed, catching glimmers of starlight with each ripple. Small fish leap briefly, and the gentle movement makes the stars dance in fragmented patterns across the water. The effect is hypnotic, soothing. You think about the countless people who have seen the same patterns, across generations, across centuries. Perhaps even the pharaoh himself once gazed upon the same river, tracing the same reflections, pondering the same mysteries. Somewhere behind you, the village dog barks softly. A night breeze carries the distant scent of bread baking for the morning, mixing with the rich, earthy aroma of wet mud. You take a deep breath, letting it fill your lungs, letting the calm of the river and the village sink in. This is the rhythm of life here, quiet, patient, unhurried, enduring. You sit by the riverbank, letting the night wrap around you. The water laps gently against the sand, each tiny wave a soft reminder of the endless flow of time. The reeds rustle, the frogs croak intermittently, and the occasional owl calls, unseen but present. You close your eyes briefly, listening. Life, in all its small, gentle details, hums around you like a lullaby. And as you sit, you realize the beauty of stillness, of being small yet connected to everything: the river, the reeds, the animals, the people, and the stars above. You are part of a vast, unending rhythm, each heartbeat in time with the flow of water, the shift of wind, and the silent dance of light across the sky. For a long while, you remain there, savoring the serenity, letting the quiet of night along the Nile soothe every thought, every worry, every lingering tension. In this moment, life feels both infinite and tenderly immediate, a delicate balance carried by water, wind, and human care. The first blush of dawn arrives quietly, brushing the horizon with soft pinks and muted gold. You awaken to the gentle hum of the village, stretching limbs stiff from the night. A cool breeze drifts through the open windows, carrying the subtle scent of wet earth and the faint sweetness of lotus blossoms along the river. The world feels suspended in that perfect, liminal moment, neither night nor fully day, when the river and the village breathe together in a slow, shared rhythm. You step outside barefoot, the earth cool and welcoming beneath your feet. A few chickens scratch in the sand, and a dog yawns lazily before trotting after them. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs, a crisp, spontaneous sound that seems to ripple along the walls of mudbrick huts. You inhale deeply, tasting the river's memory in the air: water, silt, fish, and the faint tang of sun-warmed reeds. Life is modest here, but it carries a quiet, enduring elegance. The Nile glimmers under the first light, silver streaks dancing along its surface. You pause to watch a small skiff glide by, its lone rower slicing silently through the calm water. The ripples trail behind, distorting the reflection of a heron hovering briefly before it dips to catch its breakfast. Everything moves with deliberation, even the smallest creatures, and you feel a gentle reassurance in the predictability of it all. You decide to walk along the riverbank, letting your hands brush against the tall papyrus that lines the shore. The stalks bend slightly under your touch, whispering softly in the breeze. Historians still argue whether papyrus was originally cultivated primarily for scrolls or as a material for boats and mats, but in your hands it feels like both. A versatile gift from the river, timeless and essential. A small flock of ibises rises into the sky, wings outstretched in perfect formation. You follow them with your eyes as they wheel over the water, their shadows stretching along the sand. Somewhere beyond, a crocodile slips beneath the surface, leaving a fleeting ripple in its wake. You pause and nod respectfully, remembering the priest's words about Sobek, the river god who watches and protects, balancing reverence and caution. The river, after all, gives as much as it takes. Further along, a group of villagers tends to early morning chores. Women carry water in clay jars, their bare feet brushing the sand. Men adjust nets and prepare to fish. Children chase each other between huts and fields, their laughter rising and falling like a gentle melody. You pause to greet Hananu, still working with clay and straw to mold bricks for the next building project. "Morning, Hananu," you call softly. He grins, wiping his hands on his kilt. The river sleeps little, but the sun wakes us all. You continue downstream, passing the small granary where barrels of barley and emmer wheat are stacked carefully. The scent is faintly sweet, earthy, and comforting. You run your fingers along a sack, feeling the tiny grains shift, each one a story of survival, care, and patient labor. These grains will feed families, travelers, and perhaps even those who wander through centuries yet unknown. Your gaze drifts to the temple on the bank, where priests move with quiet purpose. The sound of their chants drifts across the water, rhythmic and resonant. Even if you do not understand every word, the cadence is hypnotic, blending with the river's flow. Offerings are arranged carefully on stone altars, bread, small cakes, flowers. You watch the smoke curl upward from burning incense, a subtle fragrance that mingles with the morning air. The temple stands as a reminder that life here is both physical and spiritual, each moment layered with care and devotion. You drift past a group of fishermen testing their nets, the gentle splash of water punctuating their quiet murmurs. One boy shows his younger sibling how to cast, their movements clumsy but earnest. You smile at the universality of it. Teaching, learning, sharing, these small rituals sustain life just as surely as the river itself. Historians still argue about whether certain fishing techniques were inherited from earlier civilizations or innovated locally, but the rhythm of the work is universal: patience, timing, and respect for the water. As the sun rises higher, the heat begins to press gently against your skin. You step out of the skiff and wade into the shallow water, letting it swirl around your ankles. The feel of the river's coolness contrasts with the warmth of the sun, a comforting balance. Tiny fish dart between your toes, and the faint vibration of life beneath the surface reminds you that the Nile is a living, breathing entity, holding centuries of memory in its currents. A soft laugh draws your attention. Children are playing with small clay boats they have fashioned themselves, setting them afloat and racing them along tiny channels. You kneel beside them, showing a trick you learned long ago to create a faster boat. They giggle and cheer, their delight infectious. The river, you realize, teaches patience, creativity and joy. And even in small moments, it nurtures wonder. The riverbank is dotted with lotus flowers, their petals glistening with dew. You pluck one delicately, holding it in your hand, imagining the sun opening its bloom fully within the hour. The flower reminds you of the ancient stories, the sun born from a lotus, life emerging from water. You close your eyes, feeling the day settle around you, soft and deliberate. By mid-morning, the village hums with gentle activity. Women begin preparing bread and brewing weak beer, the smell mingling with sun-warmed clay and river mud. Men carry tools to fields, children follow with small baskets, and the river itself flows quietly, as it has for millennia, carrying life, memory, and continuity. You pause to watch a fisherman cast his net one final time, the pattern graceful and practiced, a silent echo of countless generations who have worked these same waters. Everything feels aligned. The sun, the river, the reeds, the villagers, the birds, the distant hills. You sit by the edge of the water, letting your fingers trail through it, watching the ripples fan outward and disappear. You imagine those ripples stretching far down the Nile, connecting you to unknown people, forgotten festivals, and countless dawns and dusks that have passed before. And in this quiet, suspended moment, you feel a deep sense of belonging. Life along the Nile is patient, deliberate, and enduring. It flows in cycles, carrying stories, labor, laughter, and reverence along its endless course. You rise slowly, brushing the river's coolness from your hands, knowing the day will continue with quiet purpose, as all days do, guided by water, sun, and the timeless heartbeat of the village. The sun dips slowly toward the western horizon, painting the river and the village in gentle shades of amber and rose. The day has passed in quiet rhythm, tasks completed, laughter shared, lessons learned, small miracles observed. You step barefoot onto the soft earth near the riverbank, feeling the warmth of the day lingering beneath your feet. The cool evening air carries the subtle scent of mud, reeds, and sun-warmed clay. The river flows steadily beside you, patient as always, reflecting the fading light like molten gold. You pause for a moment, letting the calm of this hour wash over you. The children have been called inside, their laughter fading into the distance. Farmers gather their tools and bundles, women carry the last water jars home, and smoke curls from hearths, soft and steady. Everything slows, entering the lull of evening, the gentle pulse that guides life here as reliably as the Nile itself. You follow the path along the bank, watching a small skiff drifting lazily in the current, a single fisherman perched at the bow. The man hums softly as he works, the faint melody blending with the gentle lap of water against the reeds. You think about the countless people who have followed the same routines, moving along these same paths, guided by the river, by the sun, and by quiet devotion to simple, necessary work. History whispers in every ripple, every grain of sand, every stalk of papyrus brushing the water. A flock of ibises glides overhead, wings outstretched and nearly silent, shadows flickering across the surface of the Nile. You follow them with your gaze until they disappear beyond the curve of the river. Somewhere near the reeds, a frog croaks softly, and a night heron stirs. These small sounds, barely noticeable, blend into a lullaby that the river has sung for centuries. You kneel to let your hands trail through the water, feeling its cool pull, the soft brush of fish beneath your fingertips, the tactile memory of countless dawns and dusks carried in the current. Historians still argue whether certain rituals performed along the Nile were primarily religious, practical, or both. You suspect they are inseparable. The river inspires awe and sustenance simultaneously, and to live beside it is to practice mindfulness, respect, and patience in every gesture. You watch the fisherman pull in his net, a few small silvery fish glinting in the last light. He smiles briefly at you, wordlessly acknowledging the quiet order of the day and the river's generosity. The village slows further as dusk settles. Lamps flicker in huts, and shadows stretch long across the ground. You pause on the riverbank, noticing the texture of mud and reeds, the subtle scent of damp earth, the cool hush of evening air. The river carries the memory of everything that has passed along its banks: festivals, prayers, harvests, and quiet conversations like this one. You imagine that even now, the river is recording, remembering, weaving the stories of your small life into the greater tapestry of history. The sky darkens, deepening to a velvet blue, and the first stars appear, soft and distant. Orion, Saw, rises once again, mirrored faintly in the water below. You trace its constellation with your eyes, connecting the dots as your ancestors did. Somewhere, a priest recites a quiet chant, and the smoke of incense drifts across the night air. You inhale, letting the calm settle deep into your chest. You notice a small fire flickering on a nearby roof, its glow gentle and steady. A family sits around it, sharing the last pieces of bread, their voices low and intimate. You think of your own family, the quiet rituals that define the end of each day: washing, preparing, sharing, giving thanks. The river flows on, patient, observing everything, an unbroken witness to the cycles of human life. As night deepens, the village quiets completely. Even the frogs and insects settle into a rhythmic hum, soft enough to blend with the whisper of the current. You sit by the riverbank, letting your fingers glide through the water one last time, savoring the coolness against the fading warmth of the day. The Nile carries you in thought, a gentle current threading together past, present, and future. You imagine generations yet to come, walking these same paths, fishing in these same waters, weaving their stories into the river's endless memory. A soft wind stirs the reeds beside you, brushing your cheek like a sigh. The air is thick with calm, with the quiet assurance that the world continues in its gentle, deliberate rhythm. You close your eyes, letting the day's light fade behind your lids, the last warmth of the sun lingering on your skin. Life is patient, enduring, and infinitely forgiving. You rise slowly, stretching your limbs and feeling the pull of the day's labor and play. Your breath matches the rhythm of the river, steady and unhurried. The stars above gleam faintly, guiding the night, reflecting in the water like twin constellations. The village sleeps, the river flows, and you are here, small and steady, part of the pulse of this world, a single note in the river's infinite song. Finally, you retreat to your home, walking along the soft paths of sand and reed. The smell of bread and smoke greets you again. Your family sleeps or whispers quietly in preparation for the night. You step onto your mat, letting the coolness embrace you. You can still hear the faint, soothing hum of the river nearby, the gentle rustle of reeds, the distant croak of a frog. Your thoughts slow, your limbs relax, and your heart aligns with the eternal rhythm of life along the Nile. The world is soft, patient, and enduring. The river carries its memories, and you, in your small way, are part of them. You are safe. You are calm. You are held within the flow of something far larger, far older, and far kinder than any single day. The night deepens further, and the cool air settles gently over your skin. You lie on your mat, letting the softness of the night embrace you. The sounds of the river are your lullaby, the gentle ripple of water, the whisper of reeds, the faint stir of night creatures moving through the banks. Each sound is deliberate, measured and soothing, carrying the quiet assurance that the world continues, steady and kind. Breathe slowly, in and out. Feel the warmth of your body grounding you, the gentle weight of your limbs melting into the mat. Above, the stars shine faintly, distant yet constant, like quiet guardians watching over the night. You imagine the constellations tracing their slow paths across the sky, mirroring the steady flow of the Nile below. Time stretches softly, each moment lingering, unhurried, safe. The village sleeps, the animals rest, the river moves with patient grace. You are part of this rhythm, a small presence carried in the gentle current of life. Let the calm seep into every muscle, every thought, every breath. Feel the pulse of the earth, the water, the wind, and the quiet heartbeat of those who have lived and loved along these banks for centuries. The world is quiet. You are calm. You are safe. Let the gentle, endless flow of the Nile carry you into dreams, letting each ripple, each rustle, each whisper of the night guide you further into rest. Sleep is coming now, softly, as certain as the river's endless journey. End of script. Sweet dreams.